Space, the final frontier, where the line between discovery and disaster is as thin as a spacesuit. Today we're diving into a science fiction thriller that turns the hunt for extraterrestrial life into a terrifying game of survival. In this, we follow the six-person crew aboard the International Space Station, who intercept a probe returning from Mars. It's carrying a soil sample, but what they discover is far more than dust. It's a life form that could change everything we know. The movie kicks off with a high-stakes retrieval mission. Astronaut Rory Adams risks his life to grab the capsule containing the mysterious sample, which nearly spiraled into deep space after being struck by debris. This scene sets the tone, a mix of awe, danger, and a whole lot of what could go wrong next. Once the sample is secured, exobiologist Hugh Derry begins testing, bringing a dormant Martian cell back to life. The discovery of this new organism, named Calvin by some very optimistic schoolchildren, seems like the scientific breakthrough of the century. But, of course, things get creepy fast. Calvin evolves. It grows. It learns. But what makes this creature even more terrifying is that it's not just smart, it's unstoppable. Imagine a life form that can use its entire body like muscle, neuron, and photosensory cells, all at once. Pretty cool. One of the eeriest moments comes when Calvin goes dormant and Hugh, in his scientist curiosity, decides to give it a little shock to wake it up. Big mistake. Calvin goes from docile to deadly in seconds, shattering Hugh's hand. Breaking out of its containment, and proving that it's not just a passive organism, it's a predator. Now, at this point, Rory's heroic attempt to save Hugh ends in one of the most shocking moments of the film. Calvin infiltrates Rory's body, killing him from the inside, and it's here you realize, no one is safe. After Rory's gruesome death, the crew's chances of survival dwindle fast. Commander Katerina Golovkina sacrifices herself during a heart-pounding spacewalk, trying to stop Calvin from entering the ISS. It's a slow, suffocating death as coolant floods her helmet, and Calvin's terrifying presence becomes a near-constant threat. By the time the crew realizes Calvin is literally feeding on them, you can feel the desperation. Sho Murakami hides in a sleeping pod as Calvin stalks him. David Jordan and Miranda North hatch a last-ditch plan to trap the creature. And Hugh, well, let's just say Calvin hasn't finished with him yet. At this point in the film, the stakes are sky high, and things go from bad to worse when Earth, having received the ISS's distress call, sends a Soyuz spacecraft to offer aid. But instead of salvation, the space station is torn apart, and the once hopeful lifeline from Earth becomes the harbinger of more doom. Now, only David and Miranda remain. Isolated, battered, and exhausted, the two survivors know there is little time left. Calvin has grown into a monstrous, almost unstoppable creature, and the fragile station is on the verge of collapse. With communication severed, and Earth unaware of the full extent of the terror aboard the ISS, their only hope lies in a desperate plan, one that might just save the planet but will almost certainly cost them their lives. The plan? Use the two remaining escape pods to make their final stand. One pod will act as bait, luring Calvin into it, where it can be jettisoned into deep space, forever exiled from Earth. Meanwhile, the other pod will return safely to Earth, carrying the remaining survivor with the knowledge of what transpired aboard the ISS. David volunteers to sacrifice himself. He makes the heartbreaking choice to use his pod to trap Calvin, drawing the creature inside as Miranda launches her pod back toward Earth. It's an emotional, gut-wrenching moment. David resigns himself to the ultimate fate, knowing that while his death might save humanity, there's no guarantee it will stop Calvin. The pods launch, one streaking toward Earth, the other into the cold, dark void of space. For a brief moment, the audience is led to believe that the nightmare might finally be over. But then comes the twist. David's pod is thrown off course by debris, and instead of veering into deep space, it makes a controlled descent toward Earth. And the pod you think Miranda is safely piloting? It's the one hurtling into space, helplessly off course. As David's pod splashes down in the ocean near a group of unsuspecting fishermen, the true horror is revealed. Calvin, ever-evolving and lethal, is still alive, now entangled with David inside the pod. The fishermen approach, curious and oblivious, ready to open the hatch. Meanwhile, David, barely alive, tries to warn them, his body covered in what appears to be a web-like material. In a heart-stopping final scene, the realization dawns: the nightmare isn't over. Calvin has made it to Earth. And Miranda? She's drifting into the infinite expanse of space, a tragic figure lost forever. This movie filled with tension from the very beginning. The confined setting of the International Space Station heightens the claustrophobia and danger, making the audience feel on edge throughout the film. The pacing is relentless, with each scene escalating the tension and pushing the characters and the viewers closer to the brink of panic.